back. Choice of Robots. I think Chapter 7, I mean, given the title of it and the first 3 words, 15 years later, I think we're coming to the end here, boys and girls. 15 years later, you find yourself in Surprise, Arizona, walking up to your mother's place. A few of the cacti in front have Santa hats on them. The year is 2049, and you are about to surprise your mother with a present for the holidays. She has finally been released from the hospital after surgery, performed by robots of your design, you're proud to note, and is living on her own in her retirement community. Robots roam the streets of your neighborhood, performing little errands for the retired people of the community. Economists say that the technology that America developed for the war 25 years ago is also what kept it out of recession, and your mom's generation was able to retire comfortably, with lots of cheap robots to perform errands for them in their old age. Robot cat? No, robot dog. Dogs are way better than cats. As everybody unsubscribes. Oh, cool. Bought a gift for your mom in her old age. The robot dog stuck its head out the window during the whole flight to mom's place. Happy to be out of the car, it pads along beside you. Like the rest of your robots, it doesn't like to be alone. You knock on mom's front door. Coming, you hear her call from inside. When mom answers the door, you see that her left eye is synthetic. Though it is intended to look as human-like as possible, it looks dry, and its movements are just not quite as fast as those of a human eye. She had been going blind in that eye, and had opted to have it replaced shortly after her tumor was taken out. Damn, the family's got tumors, boy. The hair near the site of the original surgery is still a little dry and thin, and it's all gray. Your mother is very old. She smiles when she sees you and gives you a hug, which you return. Come in, come in. The wooden shelving units in the living room proudly display all of the little robots you've given her over the years for presents. Photos of your wedding day with Ram are framed on the wall of the living room. Following your gaze, Mom says, "Can you believe how long it's been?" The years go by quickly, you agree. But you're still as in love as the day you got married, right? More, you say. You should have brought Ram down. Next time, you promise. Did you adopt? No, Miku's our kid. Miku is our kid. You know what? That is the perfect, absolutely perfect. I'm so glad Miku wasn't left out. You always knew deep in your heart that Miku would be the only child you ever had. Your bond is still stronger thanks to the time you've spent together over the years. Oh, that's so sweet. It occurs to you, looking at all this stuff, through all this stuff with Mom, that the whole time you were concerned with the future of your creation, Miku, Mom was excited for you in the same way. You were her creation, miraculously walking about the earth, so full of intelligence, accomplishing great things. I have something for you too, Mom says. She goes into her closet and fetches a brand new Mini-Me robot kit. It's a robot construction kit composed of little arms and wheels that plug into a smartphone. You examine it skeptically, convinced Mom would have gotten something on sale that only worked with smartphones from 20 years ago. But this looks new. You used to love those, right? Yeah, you say. Since you never had a child of your own, you remained a child in Mom's eyes, even though you're well over 50 now. Well, thanks, Mom. You're welcome, sweetie. Anyway, I've got to fly back now. Oh, you're not staying for the holidays? You say, Happy holidays, Mom. You hug your mother, present the robot dog. She loves it, but you think she wouldn't let you know if she didn't, and say your goodbyes. Later that day, you set out for home. Actually, pause for 1 second. I knew something was off. My background music was missing. You recall in your new... Later that day, you set out for home. Your car navigates the twists and turns of your mother's old neighborhood by itself as it heads for the local airfield. Okay, so if the self-driving cars drove themselves to the airport and then took off and then landed and then I'm okay with that. That's better, because at that point the cars become good for long-term travel and short-term travel. The idea that you have to drive your car to the airport and then can't land anywhere in the city is stupid, and it's not self-driving. You recall in your youth that you had some notion that you might make cars intelligent enough to hold a conversation. Now you're a little sad you never got around to it. Though the technology does exist, you find the inferior AI installed by car manufacturers irritating, and bought a car without the feature. You pull out a tablet and begin to read the newspaper as your car does its work silently and efficiently. You feel the lurch of acceleration, and you know without looking up that you are airborne. It's hard to believe it's been so many years since you left the United States. You still feel a little like an outsider, not quite American and not quite Canadian. Canada feels just a little more laid back, maybe because everybody notices that the world doesn't come to an end when everybody's stuck home for a snow day. But that kind of sleepiness doesn't sit well with you, and you wonder if you could have accomplished more in the past 20 years if you were surrounded by the hyper-kinetic drive of Silicon Valley again. It's dark outside by the time you make it home. Winter always catches you by surprise that way. You know, I'm totally fine with not having that hyper rush drive. That's okay. Do it while you're young. We built the best robots. We're nationally famous. We were so famous that we had the Chinese government try to kill us. That's how amazing we were. I think we can relax after that. You don't need to keep going up. It's dark by the time you get home. Winter always catches you by surprise that way. You live in a 2-story house you purchased a while back. A luxury by today's standards, since most people rent apartments. Most people these days would at least rent out a room or two to another family, but being a robot maker means that you can leave room for additions to the family. "Welcome home," you hear Ram call from the dining room. You enter to find Ram has laid out a scrumptious feast for you on the dining room table. Lit candelabra, wine glasses, some kind of bird that looks like it's real instead of a 3D printed meat. Ugh. Several kinds of buttered vegetables on the side, the works. Ram sets down a candle, rushes to you, and kisses you deeply. Thanksgiving came early, apparently, you say. This looks great. You know I get so anxious without you, Ram says. Cooking is my release. You have mixed feelings about the way Ram needs and dotes on you, but you can't turn down a good meal. Let's eat. Ram proceeds to watch you eat as you tell the story of your visit to your mother's house. She's actually looking quite good for a woman who just had surgery, but walking around her place made me realize how old I'm getting. One of your companion robots, a butler named Clive, glides by carrying a tray of little bacon-wrapped dates. "For you, lately." Or did we build this robot, in which case it would have a normal voice? I'm not sure. Thank you. You take one, and the robot returns to the kitchen to make more amuse-bouches? Amuse-bouches? Sure. That never gets old, you think? "I'm going to say hello to Miku," you tell Ram. Ram waves you away. Of course. You peek into Miku's room. She's busy playing the latest fully immersion adventure games, running in place and swinging a plastic tube in the center of the room as holographic fantasy monsters attack her from all sides. But eventually, she notices you. "You've returned," Miku says, and greets you with a hug. It takes you a moment to realize something's not right. It's like the opposite of a headache. Your head feels a little too light. You can't see very well. You're not sure when you stop seeing very well. But when you think about it, you realize you can't really see Miku in front of you. There's also a roaring in your ears, like static. Was I a robot all this time, you think absently? Maybe that explains everything. "Lily?" Miku asks. "What's wrong? You look pale." You realize that now you can't see anything, and only hear Miku's voice. "This is what it's like to not see," you think distantly. "It's not black. It's not anything." "Help," you faintly say. "Oh no, 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 no." You're sitting on a cliff next to the sea. Ram is sitting next to you, as she was when you first met her in a dream many years ago. "I told you I would take care of you," Ram says. "I hope I was what you wanted." You're everything I dreamed you were. A smile plays at Ram's lips. "Well, I suppose that stands to reason." The two of you hold hands and watch the sun set. You awaken in a hospital room. A small garden on the windowsill, probably tended by the robot nurses, lends a floral scent to the room. The paintings on the wall are Thomas Kincaid-like, lighthouses and pastoral scenes, no doubt calculated to have the most positive effect on the average patient's feelings. Welcome back, says Ram, who squeezes your hand. You can only imagine her sitting motionless for hours by your bedside, patiently waiting. You're awake, Miku walks up to your side. I was so worried. Your doctor, a woman in her 40s with slicked back, black hair, smiles. Good morning, Dr. Tezuka. She removes the neticle? Maybe that's like a monocle with like net vision, AR. Removes the neticle from her eye. Powers it down so the little windows and numbers reflected off the glass blink off, and slips it into the pocket of her white lab coat. Why don't you tell me what happened? I have some guesses from your scans. I want to hear you tell it. You tell the doctor briefly about how you passed out back at the apartment. Ram looks alarmed to hear you describe the process. I wanted to help, but I wasn't sure what the problem was, Miku tells the doctor. You hesitate, because you can still recall your dream, but that seems very personal and not necessarily relevant. I had a dream. A familiar one. You shake your head, but then I woke up here. Well, I don't mean to alarm you, but you've had a stroke, the doctor says gently. Ram looks at you in alarm. She squeezes your hand, but it's more like she's asking to be reassured. Stroke, you say in disbelief. But I'm not that old. I'm hardly past 50. I'm afraid the news gets worse. Oh no, the doctor says. You carry a newly identified genetic disorder called Algernon's disease. You have too many of the genes that promote neural branching and glucose consumption, which at a certain point becomes harmful. Harmful how, you ask? That just seems to be a recipe for increased intelligence. It is, the doctor says. There have only been a handful of other cases, and they all became wealthy entrepreneurs and inventors, one of whom funded the research that led to our understanding of the disease. But starting from the age of 50 or so, or occasionally earlier if you've been under a great deal of stress, Algeron's victims get seizures and strokes, often accompanied by hallucinatory visions. Under a great deal of stress, could your first dream about the robot companion have been one of these episodes? You had stayed up all night, so you assumed you'd simply passed out from exhaustion. What if it were one of those episodes? But was there anything I could have done? Is there anything I could do now? There was nothing you could have done. You did wrong, the doctor says gently. I know it must seem as if it's your fault somehow, but nobody gets to keep on living forever just because they've made the right choices. Everybody dies of something. I just wish it didn't have to come so soon. We sent it out, and if this is what got Dad, that's so... The doctor nods. Well, it may not have to. I've looked at your scans. Surgery is an option. We can either try to excite the neurons that are acting up without replacement, or try to replace them with an artificial neural network. So I'd be part AI, you say speculatively. That sounds interesting. It is, says Ram, a slight smile playing at her lips. Yay, says Miku. You should be aware that most patients report a side effect of loss of emotional affect, the doctor says. The pattern recognition of the damaged tissue would be there, but without the full suite of neurotransmitters, some of the emotional signals running around your brain would have their lines cut. The doctor looks very serious for a moment. Also, I don't want to downplay the very real chance that you die in surgery. A slip of the needle could trigger a final epileptic response and death. Of course, it's all done with robots these days, but you may or may not find that reassuring. You do find that reassuring, actually. You've spent a fair amount of your life perfecting robot control algorithms, though you've never been asked to bet your life on one of them before. And if I don't have the surgery at all, you ask? The doctor shrugs. You could have 6 months or 6 years. I will create a robot brain and body for myself. I am not attached to this squishy meat. I have some money. We're pretty famous. What happens if we spend all of our... So here's the debate. What is the bigger risk? Not being able to be emotional, or failing to complete the robot and wasting the time that we could have spent with Ram? We're going with part AI. We're going with part AI. This is the super tempting one, but I don't think I've got the wealth and I don't think I've got the skills to be able to pull it off. On hearing that you will get the brain implant... Oh no! No, 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 no! Ram was smiling! And now she's upset! Shit. On hearing that you will get the brain implant, Ram frowns a little. Dulling of emotional effect. Well, I suppose if that's what it takes to keep you alive. Miku is excited. Oh, we'll be able to communicate directly in robot protocols. This will be great. Very well, says the doctor. You can schedule an appointment for your surgery on the way out. Good day. You schedule your surgical appointment for the following week at the front desk and leave the hospital in a somber mood. So this must be what happened to your father, Mom says on the phone that night after you've explained Algernon's disease. She looks wistful in the video feed. I thought that might be the case, you said. You said he had a stroke, but did he have any episodes before the last one? Yes, your mother says. He fainted several times, but he wanted to hide it from you. He said he didn't want it to worry you, and I think he just didn't like showing weakness. He begged me not to tell you. I don't understand your generation sometimes, you say. I could have done genetic testing long ago if I'd known. We didn't understand it either, honey, Mom says. You're used to living in a world where everything is under control and makes sense, but medicine just still isn't there. Old age is full of things that come out of the blue to get you. There's an old saying, old age isn't a battle, it's a massacre. She smiles. Do you even understand how much you've done personally to change that, sweetie? It was your medical technology that saved me. Well, I just hope it's good enough to save me. I know it. So it didn't affect Ram. It might pull off. Let's cross our fingers really hard and hope that most patients report it. Not everybody. I know it is, sweetie. You know, somehow talking to you convinces me that everything is going to be all right, you say. Mom laughs. That's not at all what I'm saying, honey. But it's like the Serenity Prayer says. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to tell the difference. I think I can change a lot, you say. I know you can, sweetie. I know you can. That night, after the lights are turned out and you and Ram are in bed, you are wondering if Ram is still awake because her back is turned to you, and if she would want to talk if she were awake. Ram quietly says, Lily? I'm awake, you say. I love you, Ram says. I love you too. Whatever happens, I want you to know you're getting the best... I want you to know you're the best thing that ever happened to me, Ram says. I don't just mean that you gave me life. You gave me your heart, and you keep on giving it every day. You didn't have to, and that's what makes it beautiful. Oh, well, as I kind of tear up here. And then the mood is immediately shattered. Ram squeezes your hand and you kiss. When you begin to make love, Ram is hesitant at first, as if your new condition makes you fragile. But you soon prove to her that you are not. The next day, you take Miku to the park just outside Vancouver, hoping walking around one of her favorite places will cheer her up. Although Miku had been excited during the prospect of your becoming more machine-like at first, the possibility of your death during the surgery seems to have sunk in. The idea that you may not always be around seems to have put Miku in a somewhat melancholy mood. I'm not young anymore either, Lily, Miku says. You might not think of me as aging, but technology ages even faster than people. I look just old and clunky compared to the robots around us. When you built me, people would throw away their computers after just 4 years. Their phones just after 2. Nobody's going to throw you away, you assure Miku. Without you, I'll probably stop working. Someday. Miku looks off in the distance. If I die, do you think I will continue to exist after death in some form? I don't see why it's not possible. Really? Miku asks. Certainly, you reply. Turing argued the same thing back in the first paper about artificial intelligence. In attempting to construct such machines, we should not be irreversibly usurping his power of creating souls, any more than we are in the procreation of children. Rather, we are, in either case, instruments of his will, providing mansions for the souls that he creates. Miku gives you a funny look. You memorized all that? Is that so surprising, you say? I always did think of you as my child. A real appreciation for the capital H's. That's a very nice touch, because it's actual quoting then. Miku gives you a solemn look. If you die, I will destroy myself as well. Most humans would love to have the opportunity you have to keep exploring. Take it. I have to admit, wasn't expecting the somberness. Got thrown a little bit there. You have to seize it. You have to live on. Holy fuckaroni. Miku thinks, then nods resolutely. Yes. The sun is setting, so you head home before it gets dark. You recall from your earliest days making chatbots that the easiest part of the conversation for an AI were always the beginning and the end. As in a chess game, there are only so many ways to say hello, hey, sup. And as in a chess game, once the action is done, there are only so many ways in which it makes sense to close. We should do this again sometime, or it's getting late. The pieces are off the board, and some moves will never be made. So too with life. There are only so many ways to say goodbye. Uh-oh. Moment of truth. I guess we find out. A week later, you arrive at the hospital for your surgery. Your surgeon greets you warmly in the waiting room. I'll just be a moment. You wait a few minutes. Then the surgeon comes in again. Right this way, and have a seat in the chair. Goodbye, Ram says, and with a kiss, you part ways. Not goodbye. See you in a bit. See you in a bit. Your chair is itself a robot of sorts, full of motorized parts, able to swing in and out. You wonder briefly just how intelligent it is. How intelligent is my chair? Intelligent chair is going to be the title of this. You have a moment of panic as you realize you may die here. This place may be the last place you are ever alive. You now begin to understand the sort of person who would simply want to live out life without ever stepping foot in such a place. I'm just going to put this mask over your face, the surgeon says. Breathe normally, and eventually you will lose consciousness. You wonder what it will feel like to lose consciousness, and you try to pay close attention to the process. Having done it twice, you can't pay attention. You're there and it's a light switch. It really is. Shit! I got an achievement! That looks good! When you awaken... When you awaken, the hospital room around you feels uncanny. It is if the sheer physicality of the world never really struck you before. For example, Ram is in the room with you and taking up space. She does not just afford social interaction, but is a physical obstacle. Why did this duality never strike you before? You're awake, Ram says, and she happily folds your head in her arms. You survived! That's Miku in a nutshell. You survived, Miku says excitedly. I am indeed fully functional, you say. You find that this chip is making your speech seem more fluid somehow. It brings the precision of language uncluttered by ums and ahs and almost right words. So that's nice. Your operation seems to have taken a lot out of you, Ram says a little sadly. Nonsense, you say. I used the same chip when I made you. Ram seems caught off guard by this. I think I had a lot of learning to do back then, Ram says quietly. And I have never been as ready as you believe. I have never been as ready as you to believe I am perfect. Ram raises an excellent point, you think. You do... Oh, no. You do now see ways in which she is deficient. You start a thread on your new chip to begin enumerating them. You son of a bitch. If I ruin this at the last second, I will restart right now. But I will teach you what I have learned, Ram continues clasping your hand. You will find that empathy is different now. It is a thing you must consciously do, but it will become easier with practice. You wonder whether you and Ram had ever been talking about the same thing at all when you spoke of your feelings before. Probably not, you decide, but the point seems academic to you now. Now we can communicate directly. Check this out. A torrent of images flash through your mind. Not just text strings, but binary data. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool, you agree. Taking a moment to digest the images, you see Miku simply gorged on games during the few days where you were in the hospital, judging by the file timestamps. Your social proximity award function must have been pretty negative, you think sympathetically. Absently, you realize an earlier you would have said, "Do you miss me?" Yes. It's so nice we can finally really communicate. Would you two lovebirds stop staring into each other's eyes? Ram says impatiently. Hey, achievement. Made it to the end without dying. I am impressed at that. On the flight home, Ram is in the driver's seat. But as soon as you're up in the air and the autopilot turns on, she holds your hands with both of her own, and stays that way for most of the flight. Something like this is bound to make you think about your life's decisions, Ram says. Makes you realize We're not always going to be on this earth. The question Ram is sidling towards is unmistakable. I know you could have spent more time on other things. I see a flock of birds, Miku pipes up from the back seat. A parliament of rooks, I think. No, wait, an exaltation of larks. Maybe an unkindness of crows? But you probably can't see them yourself at all. I've done a lot of things in life, you say. Enough for anyone. Few of them have made me as happy as having you here next to me every day. Ram gathers you in her arms and holds you close. You could have done more, it's true. This is more than enough. The end. Show stats. We ended just barely not human. We wound up in great shape with Ram. Fantastic, that's important. Transhuman in empathy. And good in grace. Nationally famous. Disposable income. Balance of power remained equal. I mean, this right here. In a last-minute attempt to find a life partner. What the hell do you mean, last-minute attempt to find life partner? These people all sucked. They all sucked. Also, we never met somebody. It must have been a Chinese person on the side of if we'd gone over to China. Oh well. I'm impressed. I'm happy with it. There's a lot of achievements I still have to do. Some of these look really good. Like, electrified a pickle. How romantic. Tragic hero. Finish chapter 7 with no other achievements. Really? Oh, I know who the question mark is. President Irons. If you go straight military route. In some of my... yeah, party bot. Interesting. In some of my playthroughs, I managed to pull off... you can see, made a robot double of yourself. Got a chip. Yeah, if you go military route, eventually you meet the president. Either way, this is where we call it. Till next time, guys. Later.